Start again. Ready? Go.
So if you can each state your name and date of birth.
Mark E. Lennon, March 28, 1963.
Kip Lennon, March 12, 1960.
Pat Lennon, November 9th, 1951.
Michael Lennon, July 17th, 1959.
And you guys are the band.
Venice. We
Venice.
are the band Venice, yes.
Now, the band Venice is part of a legacy, begins with the Lennon family. Will you tell us about the Lennon family and their origins in Venice?
Yeah, Kip could do that.
Let's see. Our grandfather. We're two sets of brothers. Pat and I are brothers, and Michael and Mark are brothers. And our dads were brothers, so we're cousins. We're first cousins. Our grandfather was a reporter from Chicago. He wrote for the Chicago Tribune, and he met our grandmother, who was a touring ballerina from Munich, Germany, who didn't speak any English, and he interviewed her dance troupe, and then he met her, and that was that, in Chicago, and then the San Francisco earthquake happened, and he went to cover the earthquake, and her dance troupe was stranded in San Francisco from the San Francisco earthquake, and he met her again, fell in love, and asked her to marry him, and as he said, she only could say
Yes, in English.
yes in English, so luckily she said yes. And they moved to Venice. They moved to Venice in 1917. So our family has been here for over 100 years. And from them, they had, how many kids? 9?
7 boys and 1 girl?
Yeah, 8. 8. So, and they grew up right in this local neighborhood.
Yeah, on Victoria Avenue.
Yeah, and from there, their Uncle Ted's family, their family has 13 kids. Our family has 11 kids. Our other cousins have 9 and 7, and there's a whole bunch of us. So 60 first cousins grew up in Venice, starting in the late 30s.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, late 30s. So while all these young cousins were growing up, our dads and their brothers sang together in the original Lennon Brothers group.
Around when?
Like 1940s and 50s.
40s and
Yeah.
50s.
And like my dad had been an Irish tenor when he was a kid, sang at the Hollywood Bowl and everything else. But then he started singing with his brothers because they all could sing. And they recorded some albums and
78s.
Yeah, 78s,
Yeah.
And they performed locally and were on the radio and that kind of thing. And so our sisters, who are the Lennon sisters, our 4 oldest sisters, grew up listening to the harmonies of the original Lennon Brothers, like we all did. I don't think any of us were really encouraged to be in show business as much as we were just encouraged to sing, because that's just part of our family, just like sports or humor or anything else can run through a family, harmonies and singing and everything.
Any of you guys talk about stories that you remember hearing from your elders, from those who were here in the early days, about their experiences in Venice, what they remember what Venice was like in the 1910s or 20s or 30s?
Yeah.
I know that all the uncles loved going to the beach. Their idea of like the perfect day would be to go to the beach, body surf, and play volleyball. And it's actually true, it was even in a volleyball magazine, that the Lennon Brothers were one of the original beach volleyball people that started beach volleyball. But that all was handed down to us because that's what we love to do, is surf, body surf, and we just grew up playing volleyball also. But that was when the beaches were so beautiful down here, a lot less crowded than now.
All of our parents graduated from Venice High. Oh no, did your mom?
No, she went to Samuel High.
She went to Samuel High. But 3 of our parents graduated from Venice High, so they were around in those days.
Along with a lot of cousins. It sounds.
Yeah. So they graduated, I guess that would be in the 30s.
35, I think.
Yeah.
36.
The Lennon Brothers, who really began the singing career, where did the musical aspect begin for them here in Venice? Was that in school?
Boy.
Was that in churches? What was the...
I thought it was from your dad starting as a young,
Yeah.
performing
Irish tenor
singer,
that would sing.
right?
Yeah, he was like a boy tenor. Yeah, our dad.
Yeah.
And
But started in church. That's where they all learned to sing,
Yeah.
and they'd be up in the choir, and then people heard about the Lennon Brothers having good voices. His dad was especially wonderful and tenor, so he was singing at breaks during boxing matches, and he'd be the performer during the break at the boxing matches.
our Uncle Jim, which is one of the brothers as well, became a legendary Hall of Fame boxing announcer who you see in Raging Bull and Rocky movies and everything. Hello, boxing fans! The guy with the white hair. That's our Uncle Jim. So he was also one of the singers in the Lennon Brothers.
All my uncles, I mean, I think that's where we kind of get our crazy humors. They were all kind of pranksters and known as, the goofballs, but yet, talented and funny. And so our grandpa Bert it was during 4th of July, and out in the streets of Venice, and all the neighborhood kids knew our family too. So he got an oatmeal can, a Quaker oatmeal box, probably a can back then, put a hole in it, put a tiny little baby firecracker, but he dressed it up as like the world's biggest firecracker. He says, I have the biggest thing. This is from, somewhere else in the world. It's going to be crazy. So the whole neighborhood, like I think all of Venice ended up coming out back then. And he told the kids, stand on your tiptoes, put your fingers in yours and open your mouth. That way the shock doesn't blow out all your teeth. So he got the whole neighborhood, aunts and uncles and grandpas, and everyone's going like that. And he lit it and it went like, pow, like a little pow. Oh, they were all so mad at him, but they all laughed about it, and he was a legend after that. So that's a fun old Venice story.
He was promoter. He was a head of PR for Ince Studios, which became Thomas Ince Studios. We just got a photo last week that someone gave us that we didn't know.
Unbelievable.
Photos from those days are like they're little gems because they're like family photos. And there's our grandpa standing with Thomas Ince.
That's 1910s?
Yeah, and our grandfather standing there with Thomas Ince. And they did the craziest publicity stunts. So he was the kind of guy who would do that kind of thing. So the Lennon sisters are the 4 oldest sisters of our family, which makes them their cousins.
Dee Dee, Peggy, Kathy, Janet.
Dee Dee, Peggy, Kathy, Janet.
Yeah. And they had no intention of getting into showbiz. They just liked singing together. And they would sing at church functions and parties and things. And my sister Dee Dee was going to high school with Lawrence Welk Jr., and they were friends, and they were going to go out to a movie or something, and he said, well, I'll pick you up. She said, well, I'm going to be at this church function thing, so just pick me up there. So he walked in and saw them singing from the ages of, Dee Dee was 16 and Janet was 9. So they were just singing.
1955.
In 1955. And so Larry said, you guys are great. And she said, oh, yeah, everybody in our family sings. And he goes, well, you got to come sing for my dad. And
Lawrence Welk. Who's Lawrence Welk? Who I don't think we mentioned.
Yeah.
Who had a new TV show when TV first, was available.
Exactly. So Lawrence Welk got the flu or something. He was sick, and he goes, quick, my dad's home, sick in bed, so come sing for him. And they went and they sang for him while he was laying in bed. And this was in November of 1955. And he said, I want you on my show. And he put them on Christmas Eve, 1955. And from that moment onward, they were on every Saturday night for the next, I think, 15 years or something like that. And so that's how the Lennon Sisters thing started. They never really even pursued show business, never auditioned for anything in their lives. They were just little kids. And then it just took over their whole lives.
They were growing up and living in Venice.
In Venice, yeah. Like right by the intersection, like we all did, on the intersection of Venice and Lincoln Boulevard.
Yeah.
There's neighborhoods there. That's where they grew up. It's where we grew up.
Yeah.
We grew up right across
the boulevard
from each other, and we all went to St. Mark's School and St. Mark's Church. They've always been really proud to, whenever they travel around the country, always tell people they're from Venice Beach, and they would much rather have been home than been on the road.
My claim to fame is I used to surf POP Pier.
Yeah.
POP, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we used to go there as kids and go on all the rides. And also Lawrence Welk used to perform at the Aragon Ballroom. So my sisters would be there. And I don't think these guys got to, they were on the pier. I was old enough that I was able to go and just wander around all of POP. But later on, surfing it was even more important to me because it became a real kind of famous place to surf. And only locals could go there. 70s. I would say that.
Yeah, after the park closed down, the pier was there for a long time. And it was kind of dangerous to go, but the locals knew how to climb down through the rafters and jump in the water and everything. So it was like a badge of honor to surf at POP.
Yeah.
Do you have
Really
a
cool.
favorite ride? Do you remember? Or what you remember?
Yeah, there was the banana train or something like that. It went up through the mountain, and you went right over the ocean.
Wow.
And they had it kind of looking like it was real
Raggedy?
derelict and yeah. And you go right over the ocean going, oh my gosh. They also had a big bathoscape, I think it's called. Bathysphere. And you get in it, and it would go down into the ocean and then come back up. It was like crazy.
It was like
kind of like a plunge, yeah.
But it was like you're going into the depths of the ocean kind of thing. And their brother-in-law, Wayne, worked there as a teenager, and he still remembers his speech. He used to give the speech, "You're now going 40 feet down, 50 feet." He still knows the whole speech. So we grew up with a legacy of, we were really like it's almost like 2 generations because our families were so big. So by the time we were going through St. Mark's School, and by the time we started singing or doing anything, like our family, we were so fortunate enough to have this whole community that sort of knew our family already. So I wouldn't say it gave us a leg up, but it gave us a lot of security as far as just feeling comfortable and happy in this huge community of people. And still, you know, just fast forward to the present, now that we've grown and have kids of our own, it's amazing to meet coaches and other parents of kids on our kids' little league teams or whatever, that we all grew up in the same neighborhoods, and they say, "Oh, we remember your house. You used to do Halloween show at your house. We used to come see your dad do this, and we'd see, you know, your family sing." And so that is just invaluable to us. That is wealth. That's true wealth, is to have that sort of legacy and to be proud of it, to know that we've been part of the community for so long.
And Venice was such a melting pot too when I was growing up. Anyway, in the 50s when I was in Little League and Pop Warner football, it was all black, all Mexican, white. It was all equally, you know, everybody just grew up together, knowing each other. Everybody would come to our house and swim in our pool. It was just the coolest thing. For me, I didn't really think about race almost at all. Of course, as it got older, it got a little bit different.
Now, was that different than Los Angeles when you would leave the Venice area?
Venice was, I think, more of a melting pot
It was.
than you know, other areas. It was really wonderful, though.
I think one of the things people don't realize about Venice is, like Pat was saying earlier, the eclectic cultural melting pot that happens here, and especially when we were all growing up. I mean, you know, there was just all different ethnicities and races and everything. And like Pat said, I don't remember thinking it was a deal back then. Like It was just like, oh, those are my friends from football, that's my friends from baseball. You know, we didn't think of it as race and all that. And I don't think people realize that Venice is such a melting pot. I think they think it's a bunch, you know, more people like us, like white blonde surfers and stuff. But I think they don't realize, like, that's one of the great things about Venice, I think, is, you know, its heritage in that.
Yeah, definitely. Many times people ask us, what kind of music did your parents do together? Did your dads do together? And so we put together this song to sort of show people in the middle of our set, you know, that this is kind of the music we grew up listening to at like family Christmas parties and at weddings and stuff like that. So this is sort of a tribute to the way our dads used to sing together the swing music.
In my adobe hacienda, there's a touch of Mexico. Cactus lovelier than orchids, blooming in the patio.
Soft-strung guitar makes the night seem so sweet, make every evening more complete.
In my adobe hacienda, life and love are more complete.
Wow. I know.
Soft-strung guitar makes the night seem so sweet, make every evening more complete.
In my adobe hacienda, life and love are more complete. Life and love are more complete. Yeah.